So one of the fastest growing coronavirus hotspots is Florida. Florida, of course, led by the completely incompetent Smurf Republican Governor Ron DeSantis. Now, DeSantis failed to even close beaches in Florida until pretty recently. He's been way behind on everything, even more behind than Trump, if you can imagine that. And DeSantis's continued failure has really been putting Floridians, including the largely elderly population in Florida, at really big existential life and death risk. And so finally, yesterday, Ron DeSantis issued a 30-day stay-at-home order. That starts tomorrow, Friday. Florida has now reached about 8,000 cases and may likely be beyond that by the time you listen to today's show. And Florida is one of those places that Donald Trump and others for a long time have continued to say, you know, Florida doesn't really have that many cases. They don't necessarily have to do that much. The governor can decide what to do. And what we're hopefully by now realizing, and many of us knew it from the beginning because health experts have been saying it, is the folly of not understanding how a virus spreads. We call things going viral for a reason. And now that has put Florida at nearly 8,000 cases at what is still a relatively early stage of the pandemic. And remember, the effects of stay-at-home orders often take 2 full weeks to be seen. That stay-at-home order starts tomorrow. We could see a continued climb, a drastic climb in Florida in both cases and eventually deaths until the end of April, or the second half of April, I think better said. This is what we mean by going viral. You initially don't have a lot of cases, and then you do. Consider a state with just 200 cases. We hear from Trump and sometimes from Dr. Birx, there are places with only 200 cases. They don't necessarily need to do all the same stuff as other places. Imagine just 20% case growth. Now, some places are seeing 30 or 35% case growth per day, but imagine 200 cases growing 20% a day. Very quickly, in just 10 days, you go from 200 cases to 1,000 cases. If at that point you say, hey, you know what? Let's now put in a stay-at-home order, you now are trying to mitigate the spread of 1,000 cases rather than 200. And by 2 weeks, you could be, at 20,000. Who even knows? This is how it spreads. So DeSantis now finally issuing a stay-at-home order starts tomorrow. But of course, it'll take 2 weeks for that to start really doing anything. It'll be the second half of April. And Florida very well could have, instead of 8,000 cases, they could have 20,000. They could have 30,000 cases. And this all happened without a stay-at-home order, which is now being done in a panicked way. So at this point, it's like, if you still don't have a stay-at-home order, what are you waiting for? But we should feel like we are overreacting. When some states early, Washington, to some degree California, to some degree Massachusetts, when these states said, stay at home, no, only takeout or delivery, it felt to some like an overreaction. You need an overreaction. If you are playing, policies take 10 to 14 days to have an impact. If you are reacting to the numbers you have, you are already 2 weeks behind. Florida has 22 million residents. This is more people than many countries have. Chile has fewer people than Florida. The Netherlands has fewer people than Florida. Cambodia, Belgium. Florida has a larger population than many, many countries. They've already got over 8,000 cases, roughly 8,000 cases. It could get very ugly. And Florida's demographics are not good in the sense of who is at risk. Florida has the 5th oldest median population in the country. Only Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and West Virginia have an older population than Florida. We have to watch Florida. It could get very ugly. And Florida residents have not been well served by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis. Horrible, horrible response. And many Republican governors have done okay. One of the best responses was Ohio Republican Governor Mike DeWine. A pretty good response was Massachusetts Republican Governor Charlie Baker. So we're going to continue following it, and we are hoping that Florida will start mitigating soon, because otherwise the numbers are going to be absolutely tragic. There's a YouTube channel we're partnering with that I would love for you to check out. It's a channel called Upflip. You can get there by clicking the link below. Make sure you subscribe when you're there. Every week, Upflip uploads a new video where you get an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at a different small business, everything from real estate firms, coffee shops, auto repair shops. Each business owner shares a ton of really interesting insight about how they built their business, what it's like day to day, how they got to where they are. Fascinating to learn about other people's business strategies, how they found success. It's a great channel for anyone thinking of starting a business, already running one, or just people interested in how different business work. Perfect for people who like TV shows like Shark Tank and that type of thing. Check it out at davidpakman.com/upflip. The link is underneath the video. They are friends of the David Pakman Show. Make sure to subscribe when you're there. Click that bell icon to be notified when they upload new videos.